But you tried all the channels? While you slept, yeah. I've scanned every frequency this little Orion capsule is capable of. That being said, we can't afford to lose ourselves in hypothetical conjecture. Dwelling on what happened down there isn't going to help us any up here. All we need to concentrate on is getting on the OSS. She was incapable of taking that advice, and her brain vomited up the thought it had been tiptoeing around for as long as it could. Oh, God. Mike. Kevin. She felt the already weak grasp on her sanity slipping away as the notion of a rest of her life without her husband and child tried to take hold. Dimitri grabbed her shoulders and gently shook her, hoping to bring her attention back to the here and now. "No!" he screamed into her face. "You cannot do that right now." His voice was compassionate but forceful at the same time. "For one, you can't cry if you want your eyes to heal. There's no way around that. If something did happen to your family, then there will be time to mourn them later, on Olympus. Right now, I'm giving you a direct command. You are not to think about the conditions on Earth while you are aboard the Daedalus. Do you understand?" Technically, he wasn't her commanding officer until they were aboard the OSS, and he had relieved Commander Milner of the position, but she knew what he was doing. And more importantly, he was right. Nodding again, she did her best to wipe the anguished look from her face. The new one wasn't a whole lot better, but Dimitri could see the determination Laura was trying to convey. He could trust that she was, once again, a competent co-pilot. It wouldn't be slipping back into hysterics of any type. Not yet, anyway. Although it took several long seconds, she somehow managed to compartmentalize the pain into a spot where it could be relatively ignored for the time being. It was an ability that she wasn't aware she had, and that wasn't necessarily a good thing. "Yes, sir," she finally managed, and then, after a few more seconds, "What about the Ariane 6? "What about it?" She wasn't exactly sure what she was asking either. I don't know, is there any way that we can track her? We're a lot closer to it than Olympus." Dimitri shook his head, before yet again realizing that her condition made it moot to do so. "Not without knowing her flight plan. She's unmanned, so there's nothing more than a beacon, and without mission control to give us coordinates, well, the answer's no. Olympus will find her before we ever could. And all we can do now is continue on with our flight plan." Without her eyes, Laura found herself concentrating on the timbre and cadence of the man's voice, more than she ever had before. And there were no cracks. Still calm, still in control, and still working the problem with a thorough logic that she couldn't hope to achieve given the circumstances. Laura knew her life was in his hands, and she was grateful. "Do you really think they'll exile the Daedalus?" It seemed unimaginable. But then again, so did this entire situation. No, I do not." She could hear the certainty in his voice. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know Kanagi and Commander Milner won't let it happen. Wang and Giri had a knee-jerk reaction. Panic and fear makes some men revert to base instincts, but they will come to their senses. It's been my experience that those who make it to space generally have a strong reverence for life." "Okay, I believe you." And she did. They sat in silence for 30 minutes before Dimitri broke out their meal injections. Being that a toilet was one of the amenities the Daedalus lacked, solid food consumption was out of the question. A pre-launch colon cleanse combined with the injections that contained all the vitamins, proteins, and nutrients their bodies required made the process possible. Which wasn't to say that it was pleasant in the least. Several days of tapering off the injections and slowly reintroducing food to the system was required afterwards, and it could be several weeks before your stomach was ready for a spicy burrito again. Fortunately, they were privy to the most advanced supplies available, and their nutrient shots came in the MIT-engineered devices which injected their food without needles, delivering a high-velocity jet of liquid that breached the skin at the speed of sound. They included appetite suppressants as well, which kept the tummy from rumbling its disapproval at the unnatural attempt to sustain its needs. Everyone a growing cosmonaut needs to become big and strong, Dimitri said as he depressed the injection into his neck. It was the same thing he said every time they ate. His consistency was doubly reassuring in that moment, and for the upteenth time she thought, thank God for Dimitri. Although he offered, Laura was able to handle her own injection. Ironically, it was just the day before that she told him she could have done it blindfolded, and now it was time to put up or shut up. Dimitri did the honors of cleaning the dishes and informed her that it was time for her sleep. Without her vision to provide a framework of her surroundings, she was losing all sense of time. After the last drug-induced chainsaw of a dream she was in no hurry to return, and put up a bit of a fight as well. After all, he hadn't slept since she had, and they both needed him to be at his best. Or at least, better than he would be if sleep deprivation took hold. Her arguments held no sway, however, and he pulled premature rank on this capsule mate once again. Finally, she agreed. She was tired, but she declined Dimitri's offer of more fentanyl. Her eyes weren't burning nearly as bad now, and frankly, she couldn't take another dream like the last one. Before attempting to sleep, Laura did something she hadn't done since she was a small child. She prayed. It was the first time the adult version of her had done so without feeling like a hypocrite, and it was short and a simple request. There were a great many things that probably should have been prayed for more. She knew that. But she only asked for a moment of peace, an opportunity to sleep safe from the torment of her pain. Her prayer was answered. Falling asleep quicker than she thought possible, her mind remained mercifully blank. The burning thoughts she had been holding at bat, the ones that wanted to rip away at her soul, were enveloped and replaced by the soothing balm of utter blackness. It was impossible to say how long she was cradled by the nothingness, but when Dimitri put his hand on her shoulder to wake her, it felt like only a few minutes. When he told her it had been 6 hours, it was a shock, and had it been anyone else, she wouldn't have believed him. He said that he would have let her sleep longer had they not been anticipating an update from Olympus on Arion 6 status. That, and he wanted to change the dressing on her eyes. They were midway through the process of removing the bandage and cleaning her eyes for the new one, when Olympus's signal went off. Multitasking, Dimitri switched on the comm and addressed the OSS while the finishing of the task. Go ahead, Olympus. He stayed somewhat official, unsure if he'd be speaking to Rukia or not.
God, sir.
It was Rukia. She sounded unusually frantic.
Oh God. I can't believe.
Kannagi, Dimitri barked with authority, pulling the Olympus communications officer back from the edge of panic.
Right, I'm sorry, sir.
Her voice returned to its normal stoic tone.
It's mutiny, sir. Wang and Giri have cordoned the commander to the brig because she refused to side with them regarding the Daedalus.
You mean us? Laura asked.
Laura?
Yeah, Rukia. It's me.
Oh, Laura, I'm so sorry. Commander Kapersky told me about your eyes. Don't worry, we'll get you fixed up.
It had been a number of years since the women had seen each other, but they had always considered each other friends. How are we going to do that if we can't come aboard, Rukia? Silence took a full half-minute from them before Dimitri took control again. Kannagi, What is your standing with Giri and Wang?
It's not great, sir.
Dimitri chuckled, seemingly getting the answer he was expecting.
The sons of bitches know I'm not going along with them either, however. It would seem I know Olympus's electrical grid a little better than they do. I've managed to lock myself down in E-Wing, and until the morons figure out how to manually override the door controls, I should be okay. I've rerouted communications in most of the central systems so that I can control them from here.
Dimitri was impressed. For that matter, so was Laura. She had always thought of Rukia Kannagi as a competent scientist, and an advanced electrical engineer who most likely had a kind heart. But this fierce loyalty and bravery was really showing her something. In the wake of extreme tragedy, people's true colors were bleeding through the facades they liked to present, and Rukia's were downright admirable. "You're a smart girl, Kannagi," Dimitri offered.
Well, sir, I don't know about that. I may have control of the OSS right now, but the one thing I have absolutely none of is food. I've got maybe 4 days tops before I'll have to turn the station back over or risk dying, and having the whole place go down as a result.
"Kannagi, can you control the docking ports from your position?" Laura broke in, and Dimitri, knowing where she was going, nodded in agreement. It was the only way any of them could go without resolving themselves to disagreeable deaths.
That was the entire reason why I stole control of Olympus, Laura. At your current trajectory, you should be here in 56 hours. I'll make it that long. That's not the only problem, though. Even if I get you hooked up at the station, that doesn't mean that I'll be able to keep Giri and Wang from greeting you at the door as you come in.
"You don't need to worry about that, Kannagi." Dimitri's iron tone put it to rest. "All I want you to do is keep yourself safe until we can get there to help you. Do you understand?"
Yes, sir. Commander, sir. I will not let you down.
"I know that, Kannagi. You never have." After a short moment of reflection, as they all instinctively wondered if this communication were between the last friends any of them would ever have again, Dimitri asked, "Do I take this to mean that there's been nothing from the Ariane 6?
No, sir.
Rukia lamented, and after a moment,
But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Without any communications with Earth, well, we just don't know. I tried to explain that to Wang. But with Giri breathing down his neck, he just wouldn't listen. There are a million different things that could have changed about the launch time or flight plan that would affect our ability to locate it. There's no way to know for absolute sure that she's not coming until the damn thing's only 12 hours away or closer. So it'll be, like 2.5 days before I can narrow the search enough to say definitively, one way or the other.
"Rukia," Laura piped.
Yeah?
"Do Alex and Nick know that you've been in contact with the Daedalus?"
No, not yet, no. Wang isn't the complete idiot. Giri is, however. It won't be long before he figures out how to, at least, monitor the comm. I'll know if that happens, though, so... Oh, shit.
Rukia cut the communication completely, and Laura's first reaction was to re-establish the channel. Dimitri said no, however, and being blind, there was little she could do about it. "What the hell?" Laura demanded, serving the dual purpose of questioning both Rukia's abrupt exit, as well as Dimitri's refusal to find out why. A full minute passed without an answer, when she reiterated the question. This time it earned her a shh, like she was a child to be shushed. In any other situation, she might have taken offense, but in this instance, it worked. After a few more minutes of silence, Dimitri said, "It's Morse code." "What?" "Kannagi. She's using the channel's connection light to communicate in Morse code. I thought maybe it was broken, but... Okay, wait. Here's the beginning. LISTENING DOCKBAYSIX. She wants us to dock in Bay 6. Dimitri clicked the channel off and on to acknowledge the received message. Shortly after that, the channel opened again.
Daedalus, this is Olympus. Do you copy?
It was Rukia again. Formal this time.
Daedalus, I have your docking information.
She was obviously attempting to lay a trail of crumbs for Geary and Wang. Roger, Olympus. This is Daedalus. We copy. Laura replied since she was technically the comm officer in the capsule.
Roger that, Daedalus. We've got you docking in Bay 25. Do you copy? Bay 25.
There were only 25 docking bays, so she was giving them as much distance as she could without making it obvious, by putting them in the first few bays. Rukia was a really smart girl. Copy that, Olympus. Bay 25. Over and out. Dimitri flipped off the signal and sighed. The next 2 days were going to be that much longer if they'd been unable to speak to Rukia anymore. Unfettered, at least. What had started out as an expedition based in science and the advancement of the species had turned into a Darwinian nightmare where, hopefully, it wouldn't be survival of the fittest, but rather, survival of the smartest. With the advantage of knowing what it was they would be walking into. They had approximately 2 days to formulate a way of making sure they ended up on top. It was Dimitri's contention that there was a significant difference between the two men would do if they actually made it aboard the Olympus. There was more than a fine line between leaving them to their own devices by denying the Daedalus and committing cold-blooded murder in person, and he seemed fairly certain that the Olympus astronauts were incapable of such an act. She wanted to believe him. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed part 3 of Human Nature by Shannon Higdon. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button down below, along with the little bell so you can be notified when the next part of this creepypasta pops up. Be sure to check out my other channel. I'll leave a sneak peek at the end of this outro. And as always, my Darkness Militia, have a terrifying evening.
Wait a second. Are we forgetting something? Where's the body? You didn't bring it?